right, guys, we are going to start our brand new chapter talking about polynomials. Love them. And factoring. Factoring is super fun. We'll get to that in a little bit. So in this first one here, we are going to talk about naming, adding, and subtracting polynomials. Also kind of like what the heck is a polynomial and all that good stuff. Okay, so we're going to do that on 90, 91, and 92. So firstly, let's start on page 90, which this is a little sideways right here. What a polynomial basically is a many-termed thing. It's a very mathy, its definition, many-termed thing. Poly means many. Terms are like how many numbers are being added up or subtracted. So this is something that has many terms, and it doesn't have to be like many, like it could just be one or two, because you can technically have one and say that it's being added to 0. So like many. And when I want to name them, they get a first and a last name, just like you do. Their first name is going to be based on their degree, which is like their exponent or their biggest power, and the number of terms. So like how many numbers are being added or subtracted. Okay, so like how many numbers and then the biggest power. Okay, so starting over here, we're going to talk about the degree. So by naming by degree, we are talking about the biggest exponent or the highest power of the entire polynomial. So like I have to look all the way through it. So if the biggest degree is 0, so that might look something like 9, because secretly, you know, I could say that this has an x to the 0 power, and just like we were talking about last chapter, anything to the 0 power is 1, so you don't really need it. So if there is no letter at all anywhere, your degree is 0, and we simply call that a constant. If the highest degree is 1, and so for example, I see something like 9x plus 2, it doesn't matter how many numbers there are, the highest exponent is 1, because that's bigger than none. So my biggest exponent here is 1, and that is called linear. So these are maybe going to start sounding familiar because linear we talked about, all of my linear equations had a power of 1. It was always mx plus b. X was to the first power. We didn't think about it then, but now we kind of understand, hopefully. If the highest power or the biggest exponent is 2, so for example, if I had 9x squared plus 2x, the 2 is bigger than the 1, so I don't really worry about the 1. I'm just going to name it based on the biggest power, so 2, and that is called quadratic, which maybe you've heard that before. And it's a little bit weird because when I hear quad, I kind of think 4, but yeah, quadratic is 2. If my highest power is 3, so if I had something like 2x to the third plus 7, again, the biggest degree there, the biggest exponent is 3. That's called cubic. When the biggest degree is 4, so something like 5x to the fourth plus 2x squared plus 1. Again, if I look through all my exponents, the biggest one is 4, so I'm naming it based on that, and that is quartic. Like I always think quarts. So there's 4 quarts in a cup, liter, I don't know, but 4. And then if my degree is 5, if the biggest degree there is 5, so it's like negative 2x to the fifth plus 2x squared minus 3. The biggest one is 5. And so when it's to the 5th power, we call it quintic. And then after that, they kind of don't get cool names anymore, which is sort of a bummer. If it's to the 6th or higher, then we just call it a 6th degree polynomial or a 7th degree polynomial, or so on and so forth. So that's its first name. Its last name is based on the number of terms. So terms are numbers being added or subtracted. And so I count up how many of those there are, and that's how I name it. So you can't really have 0, because if you don't have 0, you don't have anything. So if you got just one single number chilling there, sitting there, like, you know, I don't know, 2x, nothing being added or subtracted to it, there is one term. That is called a monomial. Mono for one, nomial is like that nomial thing. So many terms, the nomial stuff has to do with how many numbers. If there are 2 terms, so something like that 9x plus 2 that we had over there, if there are 2 terms, that is a binomial. Bi for 2, nomial is the nomial thing, so how many terms? If there are 3 terms, so like we had this one here, the 5x to the 4th plus 2x squared plus 1 has 3 terms. That is a trinomial, tri for 3, nomial for number of terms. And then unfortunately, if it's 4 or higher, they don't get any fun names anymore. They're just called plain old polynomials, poly for many. So if it's something like negative 2x to the 5th plus 2x to the 4th minus 3x plus 1, or if there's lots and lots more, it's a polynomial. Okay, so for instance, this one here, the biggest degree is 3, so it's cubic. There are 2 terms, so binomial. Cubic binomial. This guy, there is no degree, so it is a constant, and there's only one monomial. This one here, the biggest degree is 4, that's quartic. And then there are 3, trinomial. We're going to practice this a little bit more in the next one too. I'm trying to see, like, how long has this been? I wasn't even paying attention. Yeah, I'm going to make a separate video, I think, for the other set of notes. So I'll see you in the next one.